Well, I think let's get started. If you want, my name is Antonio Rueda. On behalf of VASS University, let me welcome you to this session in which we will try to discuss in a quite informal way about the Chat GPT revolution and the impact of the AI in the field of code assistance. To overview the state of the art, we have with us three accredited experts and good people. I'm going to introduce them. Frankie Carrero is our Data and AI Director at VASS. Hi, Frankie.
Hi, thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you. Carlos Nebrera, our Technology Director at VASS. Carlos, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Antonio.
And we have with us, although we cannot see him because he's connected through his mobile phone, Carlos Linares. Carlos is a professor and the director of the degree in computer engineering at the Universidad Carlos III. Hi, Carlos. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks to you for the invitation. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Well, in roughly about 30 minutes, our intention is to share with you some reflections about this exciting topic. You can write the questions you want to ask after the talk. Our friends will try to answer them. Thank you again, everyone, for coming. I'm going to hand the session over to you, Carlos Nebrera, or yours.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for being here today. So we're going to discuss a little bit about the code assistance and all the new crazy stuff that is happening with all these generative AI, large language models, Chat GPT, Copilot, Amazon Code Whisper. So there are different tools nowadays that are trying to make our life easier when we code. So I'm going to start with the basics because I don't know if everyone in the meeting really knows what these tools does. So Frankie, maybe you can give us some examples, and Carlos, of what this kind of solutions does and why they are different from what we had before that was provided already by the programming IDEs.
Sure. Carlos, do you want to start or should I?
Juan, doesn't remind you do first.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, I would like to make a reflection about the meaning of this kind of tools, because I'm sure that most of the people here today, most of the audience, have been programming for a long time, at least 5 years, maybe, or 10 years. So they have had an evolution in programming. They have seen an evolution in programming, but I've been programming for more than 30 years so far. So I started with really old environments when they had to compile the code manually, treat every error and bug one by one, and it was really slow and chaotic sometimes. And now we've come to a place where we can do amazing things with an assistant, an automatic assistant that can help us just by suggesting code, detecting bugs in the code, not just errors, to compiling errors, but I mean bugs because the code is not going to work as it should, and even it can write some chunks of code. So these are some of the things that we can do today. And for someone like me with this long experience, I just can say that this is amazing. Even if it's just starting, we still have a long way to go, but it's amazing for me. I don't know, Carlos, for you if it's the same.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, for me, all these technologies are pretty thrilling, and they're much welcome, and they actually changed entirely our way of coding, both things, coding and programming. And I think that the examples that you were mentioning are entirely true. Maybe the point that we might be discussing during the session today is also that sometimes these recommendations lack of some form of formalism that will help programmers to better understand what they are doing, or for providing codes or snippets which do not pose any risk, and things like this. I mean, in the end, and I'm pretty sure that we will be discussing that, in the end, what these systems most of the time do is to provide the most likely response in a statistical way. And this doesn't necessarily mean that they are the best ones. As for me, I've been also enrolled in programming and coding duties for the last 30 years. Most likely for the first big change was a stock exchange. I started doing everything by myself. Then there were one place where I could actually go just for copying recipes, for doing specific things. And now, most of the times for me, the next biggest step, which is pretty big actually, is that, for example, GitHub Copilot does that automatically for me. Even if sometimes I read the recommendations.
Okay, and that's very interesting. I'm going to go a little bit deeper in there, because we have different tools nowadays for this kind of tasks. I mean, we have a specific tools like GitHub Copilot. We have more general tools like Chat GPT. But you know, people, when you talk to people about these kind of solutions, you know, they always talk about how these systems are super intelligent and they can think how to solve the problems better and so on. But in the end, the models they are based on are not really intelligent. So it's really great if, because some people get confused on how they work internally, and I'm not expecting for you to explain all the system of how a large language model works, but are these solutions really intelligent, or they are just a statistic solution that can, you know, that can try to take a lot of widespread information and construct something that makes sense? So in which point are we really in this kind of solution? So how can we trust what they're doing? What do you think, Carlos?
Well, tough question, actually, because in my experience, I've been working on artificial intelligence for the last 30 years. And in my experience, every program created artificial intelligence in the end has some kind of trick. I mean, I'm not aware of any automated system which actually mimics intelligence in an intelligent way. What we usually do is to create programs which actually create this illusion of artificial intelligence, effectively solving problems which are known to be hard. And this is pretty good. So this says, I will never require for a specific program to have a smart iners, or to be designed in a very intelligent way or anything like that. As for your question, in the case, for example, both of Chat GPT-4 and also GitHub Copilot, which are the cases that you mentioned, these two are based on LLMs, which are contrary to intuition, because people believe that these are very recent models, but they are not. Actually, large language models were proposed for the very first time in 1949 by Claude Shannon. So they are more than 70 years old, but we haven't the computation capabilities that we have nowadays. They also use a form of deep learning for creating semantical contents which actually make sense. There are more techniques, but the most prominent techniques that we can actually see in action in both ChatGPT and in GitHub Copilot are these two: large language models, which can be seen as an evolution of natural language processing, and also deep learning. Both are stochastic, have been coded stochastically, so they both consist of stochastic models.
Okay, Frankie, do you want to comment on the answer?
Yeah, maybe something else that I can add. Just speaking about LLMs based on transformers, and I was working in NLP for a long time, like 20 years ago, and we had a problem, a real problem, when we wanted to analyze texts, because we could just analyze small chunks of words, a small bag of words that we were speaking about. So maybe you could only analyze 3, 4, 5 words and see what the relationships that you could get out of them. And it was really frustrating at that moment. But now, with this self-attention mechanism that is behind the transformer, this idea that you can understand the context, because you can take into account some words, a lot of words before the word you are considering right now, and some words after the one that you're considering right now. It's really powerful. And this possibility, as Carlos was saying, of having the computational capabilities to do this has been a real game changer. But the thing here, and I think that this is something to discuss, is if these algorithms and these models really understand what they are reading, what they are analyzing. And you said, Carlos,
to reason and understand the problem you are trying to solve and look for the best answer, or they're just taking information from a lot of places and trying to put everything together in a way that makes sense, but they haven't really thought that if it makes sense or not. I don't know if you know what I mean.
The thing is that when we speak, when we use the word understand as humans, it means something that maybe is not the same for machines right now. You know,
right.
We tried. I think that we're referring, and this is difficult. I'm not a psychologist or someone that can explain this, but I think that we are speaking about something that we comprehend and we are conscious of that, and we understand it from a very high level. You know, a high level of abstraction. And I don't think that the way it works, I don't think that the machine is doing this. Carlos was saying that this is a statistic model, and I tend to agree, even though there are some relevant figures in the field of artificial intelligence who say otherwise, say something different, because they think that this is the first step to thinking, to understanding what's behind. And in fact, some others are speaking about stochastic parrots, because they say that these are machines that can repeat some random things that make sense, and that's because they have statistically seen many similar texts.
It's a very good answer. I mean, I wanted to clarify this because it's important for the next questions I'm going to do. Because if you consider how it works, I mean, it's really good. It can provide you crazy answers if you have tried the tool, Chat GPT or Copilot. I mean, sometimes it's like magic, like if he knows what you are thinking and what you want to do next. It's capable of writing code from your comments and understanding the way you code and adapt, you know, even the syntax that you are using, understand the syntax you normally use and copy the syntax. So it's really good, but what are the limitations of that? So, because it's pretty good doing many things, but in your experience working with it, where are the limits? So, because in some cases, it can fail in doing very simple things. And you won't expect them to fail, because you say, okay, it's solving me complex problems, why it's failing in such a simple task? So, where have you found the main limitations and how they help you in your code bases?
Go ahead, Carlos.
Yeah. So, okay. So for this, I'd like to know one thing. I didn't say that these are statistical methods, and if I did, I was wrong. They are stochastical methods, and admittedly, by OpenAI, what they wrote actually in their white paper is that what they do is to compute the most likely response. So they admit, they openly admit that what they are doing is to analyze data and to provide the most likely continuation to your discourse. So you're talking. Or for example, in the case that Carlos was mentioning right now, for example, if you write a comment saying, I want to add the first 100 numbers, then it actually tries to get the meaning of the sentence. And I think that at that point, that's pretty good. I mean, it really impresses me. Then from there, what it does is to provide you with a snippet, which simply is very likely to be correct. This is what it learned from the statistical methods that it has been given to, for which it has been trained over teras and teras of data. I think that the main limitations when using this kind of techniques, I wouldn't like to turn philosophical, but from a practical point of view, I think that there are, I will highlight a couple of them. First of all, if you think that what these systems actually do is to provide the most likely response and they are outstanding, this is an outstanding thing. So this is absolutely cool. But now the point is it true that the most common answer is the best one? So I think that this is actually, most of the limitations from a technical point of view actually come or stem from this observation. Most of the times it does, but there are a number of papers of people, for example, complaining about security issues, about financial costs, or even ecological costs about the solutions provided automatically by these systems, just only because they are providing common or standard solutions instead of trying to optimize the solution or to adapt or to tailor the solution they give to your question. And the other limitation, I find is that, again, I don't want to turn philosophical, but one thing I, for example, see my students a little bit frightened, not that they use this for copy, not at all, but the point that they might believe, or that people might believe when using these techniques, that the only available solutions are those given by these systems.
Yeah, I agree with you. Maybe we can add some other limitations that are not so tied to the code itself. Well, we could talk not only about code quality, like you said, and all these sort of things, but also, for instance, it can come up with, like you said, with some codes, with some ideas that are over there online. You know, they have been taken from the sources, but it's not creative itself. It's not innovative. It cannot create a new algorithm, a new kind of solution, you know, for a problem. Or at least I haven't seen it. I won't say that it can't, but I haven't seen
it. Me
neither. And there are some ethical and maybe even legal issues, you know, because
right.
It's using a lot of sources that maybe it's not allowed to use. It wasn't allowed to use, and sometimes the output of the algorithm has included not only codes but even comments, you know, that were present on other codes in GitHub, for instance. So I've seen some lawyers talking about this, and they are not clear about the implications. Maybe it will take some time, you know.
Yeah.
And one of the, I'm not sure if this is a limitation, but it's more a risk, is the dependency that it can create on programmers, especially in young programmers, because you know, people who has a lot of experience, they will use it as an assistant, and they have to understand the code to see if it's okay, or if it has a mistake. Maybe you can give it a code and help you, and then ask it to help you modify and even improve the code, or just ask if it's okay. But for a young programmer, they are not sure if the code is really correct. They have to test it. Maybe there are some bugs, or some things that have not been taken into account, or you know, there are many situations where they don't have the experience, so they cannot rely entirely upon this.
Right. I think that Frankie actually made a very good point. It's not only about the limitations that the usage of these tools poses to us as humans. I think that Frankie made a really nice point by saying that we also, we humans create some limitations on the system itself. So, for example, consider copyright notices. And I'm pretty sure that the people behind this, all these tools, OpenAI and all the other cost companies, are pretty concerned about it. So this said, I think that in the very, 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 very few next years, we will see a lot of changes as soon as all these limitations get clear. So if people, if the law or if governments give a green light to these companies to really deploy a fully operational systems, I think that they will be entirely different than what we are seeing nowadays.
I want to go deeper in some of the things that you have commented, because one of the things you commented was quality and security, and I think that's a very important one. Yeah. What this system does is train with using the public repositories that are available in GitHub or other repositories. We have a big security problem nowadays, in which we are always launching patches or libraries and things like that because there's a security error that has been fixed. This automatic assistant may have been trained with code that is wrong, because they especially.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yes, Carlos. It's even more than that. There are people. Right now, there are people, for example, in GitHub trying to produce counterexamples for GitHub Copilot. It's like kind of a hidden word. So GitHub Copilot is being trained right now. Right now, this is collecting data from GitHub for providing better services to programmers. But right now, at the same time, there are people throughout the world feeding GitHub with counterexamples, with things which are intentionally wrong, so that they mislead GitHub Copilot.
That's what they are doing.
Yeah, I'm talking about GitHub Copilot, yeah.
That's a very good one, because it's like when someone launch has an open source library that really a lot of people is using, and then decide to corrupt the library because he's angry for some reason, and no one realizes it. So you can have a high risk from using this provided code if you don't really know what you are doing. So I have a question there. So if you consider the security risk or quality risk, because as you say, you're a junior developer or even a senior developer that get used to the tool and don't really check if the code is providing is good or not, because humans are very bad at supervising things. So we are very good if we are focused on what you are doing or letting something else work for us. But supervising what the machine is doing, we get bored, and if things start to work well, we tend to think that everything else will go well. So we tend to lack attention. So even if we can improve our productivity using these tools because we can code faster, if we are creating a lot of issues we have to fix later on and get problems in production, and we create bugs that we are not fixing properly. So in that balance, how do you think we are at the moment? So we are really doing things better because we're improving productivity, even if we are doing, maybe having a worse code or less secure code, but we can fix it later or use another tools to fix it, or we are actually in the total balance of things doing things wrong or worse than we were doing before having this kind of assistance. What do you think, Frankie?
I think it's really a very good point. I hadn't think about this, from this point of view, but I think that it could make sense. First of all, I would like to know exactly what's the percentage of programmers that are using right now this kind of assistance, because I've read some studies.
9 of 10, but GitHub has to get good publicity from themselves. I don't think it's 9 of 10 because a lot of people work. Well, we'll talk about that later. But you cannot really use Copilot with code from other people with other permissions. So it's not everyone can really use it if they want to. So probably the percentage is not that big, I think.
I tend to think so. So if we just concentrate in this part of the programmers, on this group, well, in a way, you're saying that we can become lazy as programmers because we could just rely completely on the output of the model, whether it is Chat GPT or Copilot or whatever. And the thing is that if you're an experienced programmer, and even if you had the experience of peer programming, that has been a practice in the past few years, I think that you will have the habit, to analyze the code, and you won't abandon it. It's going to be the same for you. It's like an automatic partner for you. In this case, instead of having another person seated by your side. If you don't have the experience, I think that the problem could become real. So for me, that is the situation. In my case, I'm not really a programmer anymore. I just do it at home because I don't have the time in my everyday job. But I think that it wouldn't be a problem for me. And in my case, I like to, it's like when I write an email, I read it 3 times or even more, and try to put in the header everyone who's going to receive the email, and try to see to understand the email from different points of view. And I tend to do the same with the code. So people like me, people like you, it will be the same. For young people, it depends. I'm not sure.
Well, I think first of all, regarding the percentage, as Carlos says, I know that talking about GitHub Copilot, that they mentioned that 9 out of 10 different programmers actually use GitHub Copilot, and this might be very well true when looking at programmers in GitHub. Actually, I use GitHub Copilot, which means that you actually have to enable it. So I'm pretty sure that these guys, the people from Microsoft, know exactly who's using GitHub Copilot. But this number 9 out of 10, I think that mostly refers to GitHub users, which most of the time are private users. So it's like me working at home, just simply making some coding. And I'm pretty well aware of some companies, in particular in Spain, which do not allow their programmers to use GitHub Copilot. So that's forbidden. And it's forbidden because of exactly what you mentioned before, Carlos, which is copyright issues. So they are really afraid of shipping products and that they might be violating some copyright issues. And regarding the second part, my feeling is that this is progress. This is true progress. I see this as something which is really useful. But my point, I think that along the same lines discussed by Frankie, consists of truly understanding what is going on here. So for me, I know that every time I'm typing something in my Emacs editor, when I see a suggestion in GitHub Copilot, or if I'm asking Chat GPT and I see a response, I know for sure that this is just the most likely continuation, which is extraordinarily hard to compute. So that's why I'm saying that this is true progress. But that doesn't mean that that has to be exactly the solution we're looking for. I think, I agree with Frankie. It all falls, in the end, it all falls to your own understanding to be able to make some criticism with the solutions that you've been given. Maybe from there, you can actually get an idea or a new insight for doing things in a different way, which I see as wonderful things. But in general, I would say that I'm not always accepting the solutions or the snippets I'm given as they are. And in general, I tend to make a number of modifications or to make some kind of elaborations over them.
Yeah, it makes sense. And
sometimes you're really proud because you think, well, my solution is better than the one you're proposing to me. So
it's sometimes, yeah. But for example, let me tell you a nice thing. During the last month, I've been giving a number of lectures on one specific programming language to people who didn't know that programming language, and then we have a number of hands-on sessions. The funny thing was that I have to disable a GitHub Copilot because it was making my talking absolutely unnecessary. So every time I was making a hand-on demonstration, GitHub Copilot was anticipating everything I was going to do. Most of the time, just because those were very, very, very small examples, so those were truly easy. But then when I'm making my real, true professional work, it's not the case that I always get the solutions I'm looking for. And sometimes, as Frankie said, I know of a solution which is better than the one I've given.
Great. Well, coming back to what you have been saying before about privacy, we have in the early stages of these solutions. I mean, Copilot was launched in October of 2021. So, it seems impossible that the solution only has 1.5 years because it's really evolved very, very fast. But there are some problems to actually have a broad adoption of the technology. I think that they will be solved, but at the moment you have a privacy issue in two ways. First, you're using code from other people that may have copyright, and some solutions are trying to fix it, like the Amazon solution with Code Whisper, but it's not as powerful yet as Copilot. It will be great if these solutions can actually provide the code on the copyright. Like, this was written by this person, but since they are actually joining out of information, it's very hard to know exactly where the codes come from. So you have a first problem that it's copyright of code that it's in your program from other people. But you have another problem is if the code is not yours, for example, you are working in a client and the intellectual property of the code you are building is from your client, that code has to go to the Microsoft servers every time you write something for Copilot to work. And some clients are very afraid of that because even if you have some options in Copilot for privacy, telling the system, okay, don't train your solution with my code, still your code is leaving your system, going to the servers of another company. You don't know what they are going to do with it. Your code may have some, very crazy things you don't want to share with anyone or private stuff. So do you think that's something that is going to really be solved soon? Because many companies don't really want for their people to use Copilot for this reason. So I'm sure some of them are using Copilot at home without telling their company, and breaking somehow the relationship and the trust of their employees. Because it's like having doors on the countryside. So people really want to use it, even if you don't tell them that for privacy reasons you can't. So how do you think this is going to evolve in the near future? Will you really solve that, or it will always be a risk?
Maybe I can go first. Okay. Well, this is a matter of trust. Even if GitHub or Microsoft with Chat GPT, because it's really the same situation with Chat GPT. Even if they say that they are not using this code or these texts that you're sending to them to retrain the model, and even if they guarantee it to you, maybe some companies they will always have this feeling that they cannot trust it, and maybe there is no real reason for that. So I think that it depends.
Even if they don't retrain the model, they have the logs of the input you have provided, so they can always, they shouldn't, but they can send that information to your competency or to competitors, or do whatever. Even if they anonymize the information, you never know what they are doing. We have cases like Facebook, in which these things have happened before. So
I think that the only way to address this, maybe not the only, but the first way that I can think of, is to do something like just get a raw version of the model and retrain it with your own code. I mean, you have an instance of the model just for yourself, and you can feed it with your responses and with the code that you generate, and then you have a model that starts in the same way as the rest of the world, but you have just trained it for yourself. So I think that would be a good way to guarantee that you have the trust in these systems, and you can use them just for yourself.
Carlos, what do you think?
I mean, that's a pretty broad question. I don't really think that this will be solved in the near future, because this is a question of law, and here there are two very different side views. Most importantly, the one in the United States and the other one in Europe, because Europe is trying to really create clear regulations for all those issues regarding privacy. For example, where some companies like Facebook or Google has no trouble in the United States operating, they actually got some trouble while operating the same way here in Europe. I think that on the other hand, this is not a simple issue. So I will actually bet that these limitations that actually Frankie was mentioning at the beginning of our chat, they are going to last for a number of years. That on one hand, and then on the other hand, there's one issue I'd like to mention regarding what Frankie said. Finally, which is how to say this is, I mean, right now, the tendency, the trend in computer science for creating these systems consists of using as much data as possible. There is an abide in artificial intelligence which says there is no data, like more data. Even if in the last 20 years, many researchers actually prove that the same success ratios can be actually achieved by using like 100% of the data that is being currently used. So if the law still makes pressure regarding privacy issues and such, then I think that scientists will be forced to try to do something like what Frankie said, which is to try to get the same performance, but using much less data.
Okay.
Which I actually tend to believe this is the right way to go. I mean, I don't mind for Microsoft to observe my code in GitHub, but I find it like, I don't know. I mean, I have mixed feelings here. So I think that the right way to go consists of trying to achieve the same performance, but using far less data.
Yeah, in some way, it's sometimes I feel that if you're leveraging the fact that there are a lot of people that has contributed a lot of code to a model, to train the model, and you get that help, even if they use your code, you're helping other people to so it's like you're giving and receiving at the same time, no? But when it comes to a company that has to protect the code, that I think that the feeling is different.
Yeah, I think it's different if you are an open source minded or a private code mandate, so to respect it quite a lot. So I'm gonna make you a last question to let people to make questions as well. So, and the other one is, I mean, you have said that nowadays the assistant is really good. I mean, I'm being a devil advocate here. I'm trying to, to look for the problems in the assistant and the limitations, risks, etc. But it's really, really good. If you are using it, I mean, it really works very powerful. The question is, if these assistants keep evolving and start being more intelligent, I mean, DeepMind now is trying to provide additional knowledge and intelligence to the system, so you're not just stochastic measures, but using the solution they use for alpha code and stuff like that. There could be a moment in which your role as a developer changes a little bit, because you're not so focused anymore in building code and solving small pieces of problems, but can you actually become a AI assistant or AI supervisor in the future? I mean, that can have a high impact of how much do you have to learn to code, the job position, what they expected from you, the labor market. So you think that's going to change? I mean, probably not in a couple of years, but in 5-6 years, considering how fast it's evolving. Do you think that the skills required and the kind of job is really going to change quite a lot? Or it will still be more or less the same, but with the help of a Copilot assistant that make your life easier, but cannot really do most of the things that you are currently doing?
Well, I think that everything changes, even though sometimes we don't want it. But maybe I'm a little bit of old-fashioned, and I tend to think that if you want to master in something, you need to start from the bottom. So you need to know the foundations of something to become the master and to become this AI. I don't know the name that you gave it, but supervisor. Yes, you cannot supervise if you don't know about that, if you don't have the experience. Again,
yeah, but it's risky because if you start having AIs helping you from the beginning, you may never go deep enough to actually have the experience. So it's a circle that you may not be able to break completely.
But at the same time, in a way, I think that we haven't entered into some of the applications that we can get other than just pure programming. And for instance, I was we didn't mention it before, but I was a professor at the university for more than 10 years. So I still have this mindset when it comes to learning programming. And I've tried Chat GPT, for instance, to ask it about just give me a piece of code that solves this problem, a typical problem in programming at the university. But I just gave it some code and asked it about the mistakes, the errors that it could contain and how to solve them. I've asked ChatGPT to give me to show me the way in which a piece of code works step by step, explain to me how it works, and the response was good. And even I have asked it about the efficiency of the code and if we could improve it. So in a way, something that we can get out of it is like an assistant to learn how to program. Not just an assistant for programming, but just to learn along the way. There is, for instance, in Khan Academy, have recently launched a bot that is called Canmigo, I think, and it helps students not by telling them how to solve the problems, but by launching some questions. When they ask a question, the chatbot, the Canmigo, launches some of the questions to help them get to the answer. So I think that we can use it for more things than just pure programming. I don't think, Carlos, you're more expert than me on this because you've been a professor longer than me, but I don't know if you agree.
Well, yeah, actually, in my university in UC3M in particular, every year we have professors can actually ask for projects of teaching innovation for the next year. And this year, for the very first time, we were given a new category, which was how to use, for example, Chat GPT or GitHub Copilot, which is usually seen as a threat in universities and higher schools worldwide because we are afraid of the students copying. And we've been given this task this year for the first time, like trying to use these technologies more like a friend instead of a threat, which I actually like a lot. Regarding the question, I think that if you put everything together, Carlos, I mean, regulations, and also the pressure of users who don't want to see their codes being used for training these systems. Also, the pressure of people who really wants to get these working the best you can do as soon as possible. If you put it, everything together, I think that you said 2, 5, 6 years. I think that what we're going to see is in the next few years is that these tools will become systems throughout the organizations. So from the rookie programmer to the CEO, I think that we will have specialized systems for all different kinds of duties. I don't really see that jobs are at stake right now with things like those, or that they could actually substitute, with jobs, or at least not in the short term. So by 5, 6 years. Given my age, this is the third breakthrough I live in artificial intelligence. First one was expert systems. Second one was big data. These two were entirely going to change the world. They actually did, but only up to some extent. So, from my own experience, I feel that these tools are absolutely amazing. They are true progress, but it's not what some people are claiming that they will be, at least in the short term. That's my view.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. Well, it's a pity, but it's time to go. We are sure that the voice of Carlos Linares is indeed his. It's not a product of AI.
I'm sorry.
We cannot discern.
Right. Congratulations for the talk. It has been so clear that even I have understood almost everything. Thank you for the talk. Thank you for all the people that has joined us in this session, and hope to see you soon in another occasion. So thank you.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Carlos.
Nice to you.
Thank you for organizing.
Thank you very much for having us today. Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Frankie and Carlos.
You too.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.